This is Scott Becker with the Becker Private Equity and Business Podcast. Today's discussion is Apple sounds the alarm. So here's the fascinating thing about Apple, and there's a great story in a journal called The Telegraph, which I think is one of the great London newspapers, speaking about business, and basically saying that Apple's facing its biggest crises since the iPod, since it sort of got going with the iPod. But the point being, it really as follows. The big issue with Apple is they've had 4 quarters in a row of revenue declining. They're also in a spot where in China, which is one of their biggest markets, they're facing re-emerging competition from the company called Huawei. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it correctly, Huawei, constantly in the news. And those are big problems for Apple because as the iPhone goes, so goes Apple in a lot of ways. It creates the ecosystem for so much more of what they do. They've had 4 quarters in a row of revenues declining, and this is scary because all of us are investors in Apple one way or another. Now, in terms of their stock market capitalization, they're still the largest market capitalization company in the country at $2.9 trillion about, with Microsoft just about $100 billion behind at almost about $2.8 trillion. So fascinating there. We're going to keep on watching what happens with Apple. It's just a fascinating story. It's an amazing company, an amazing ecosystem that they've built, but they are starting to see that slow down in Apple phone sales and the iPhone sales. What is just fascinating is one of the authors in the article cited a researcher who said iPhones are becoming like washing machines, that you don't replace them until they're broken. And I think that's fascinating too. And I think that's true about washing machines. But we have found in our family, the last couple that we've replaced have exactly happened like that. When the button started not to work, it was more of a 3.5 to 4 year cycle versus the excitement of the 1 year, 2 year cycle of the new thing coming out. So I think that's fascinating too. In any event, thank you very much for listening to the Becker Private Equity Podcast. We hope you enjoy this. Always follow us on LinkedIn, or feel free to comment or text 773-766-5322 with your comments. Also, feel free, book we just authored with Grace Keller, Blocking and Tackling 60 Keys to Building a Business and Manage Your Money. You could buy it on Amazon and I think on iTunes shortly. I need to check with our publishers. Thank you so much for listening to the Becker Private Equity Podcast, and thank you every day to the magnificent producer, Chanel Bunker. Thank you very much.